Hello, hello, everyone, and happy Wednesday. You've made it halfway through the week. Thanks for joining us on today's AdvisorShares AlphaNooner. Today, very excited to be joined. We've got Noah Hammond back in the mix, which is great. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking through Fed Day, of course. Happy Fed Day to everyone out there. And then, of course, walk through some charts that are interesting and worth taking a look at today. I will also say, if you're joining us for the second half of the week for Thursday and Friday, don't miss out. There's some great guests we have coming up. We've got Eddie Elfenbein tomorrow talking markets, kind of digesting some of the Fed news and kind of decision where we are there, as well as heading into the end of the year for an interesting look at what he's taking a look at, what stocks he's eyeing up. And then at the end of the week on Friday, we're going to have Brad Lamensdorf on, spending some time talking about where he is seeing weakness in the markets, hedging, and kind of the ability to try to spot some weakness before it shows up in earnings or wherever else. I'll have a chart at the end to kind of share and illustrate. That'll be a little bit of a teaser for that upcoming appearance. So stay tuned for that. Of course, if you're joining and you have questions or comments, you can always put them in the chat. That is a great way to connect. I think I see some in there already, which is great. Let me see if I can pull those up. Happy Wednesday, Stevie. Skip, great to see you. Great question, Stevie, in terms of if there were a Mag 7, Max 7, very solid. I would have to pick a list from there. That would be tough. I don't know. I think we've done stock selection in the past in terms of, what are the top 3 stocks you're keeping an eye on right now kind of thing. I don't know.
We could do that though. Build your ETF by the end of the show, see what it looks like. My guess is you would be also very broadly diversified. You wouldn't be just a single theme, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't do a single theme. That's not, I think I have exposure to themes currently now. But yeah, I think in general, we talked about this, I think last week in terms of, I think psychedelics is a big one. I think very interesting. But yeah, I got to throw out an interesting one that's out there. I feel like I wish I had said Build-A-Bear or something a while ago. I know that was like a weirdly hot hit for, it was beating like the S&P 500, beating NVIDIA. Remember that? Like
You would have sold your Beanie Babies stock and bought Build-A-Bear stock?
Or bought Labubu stock, I guess. That's like the hip thing that I think people are doing nowadays. So who knows? All right. Well, let me know if you have
Sadly, I've heard of that, though and I know it's some kind of doll, but I don't know what it is. Like, where did it come from? Is it a cartoon? Is it a...
I don't think it's a cartoon, which is interesting. I don't know where it came from. I think it's very similar to Beanie Babies. I don't know why it's become so popular. I think it's the same psychology of Beanie Babies. It's something that is kind of a personal reflection of you, depending on what style of doll or like accessory you choose.
Does it do anything, or is it just a tiny stuffed doll toy? Or is there any tech in it?
No tech in it. But I mean, I think humans have a unique ability to humanize object. My Pet Rock, I feel like is a classic thing. It doesn't need to have gizmos and gadgets to have something that is fun for people to play with, that they can kind of project some humanness onto. So no, I think it's just a doll effectively, but one that people really like. And then I think, of course, when the economics come into it, people are trying to buy and sell them, trying to find ones that are going to appreciate the most. And I think there's a solid gold one.
What? Really?
Yeah, I think it's a big phenomenon. Have you, like, on your Christmas list, you're not getting asked for Labubus this year?
No, I don't have any kids, or they're in college, so I'd have a lot of questions if that showed up on their list.
They're kids, right? I don't know. Yeah. Do you have any exciting?
So that means you do, right? You have one of those. Which one's fits your unique character?
I don't even think they're nameable, but I don't have a Labubu. I know someone who does have a Labubu, though. Not to flex.
Do they all have individual names that they come with, or people name them names?
Great question. I think it's different than Beanie Babies in that way. I think it's like, I don't know. I'm not deep in the...
And what does the word Labubu mean?
So many good questions with so little answers that I'm able to provide you, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have those answers. Do you have the answer to the big question of the day, which is, do we get a cut?
Well, my answer is putting my money where my mouth is. So on Kalshi, which I just pulled up, and we should make some bets too whenever you're ready.
Okay.
I have 2 open bets. One is Fed rates, and I am saying it's maintain, which to be fair, it's contrarian because I bought at saying yes at a 15% chance, because you can vote yes or no or bet yes or no. Now the whatever percentage of that happening is down to 3%. So I could buy even more if I'm highly confident in my answer, but I'm not. But it's pretty low. Like according to Kalshi, rates are getting lowered. Which the frustrating thing is, this is a knowable answer, right? Somebody already
Powell.
knows the answer. Yeah, so you don't, you wonder if that's being affected there or not. My other outstanding bet is whether or not Bitcoin closes above 100,000
I
this
still
year,
said
and
no.
I'm a yes on that.
How's it?
And what's the current price of Bitcoin? I saw 93, 94,000,
Okay.
something like that.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I
All right.
know.
Doing, yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's fair enough. Yeah. I do think if we get cuts,
But
that way.
you think what? Say that again?
If we get the cuts, I'm imagining assets like that get a little bit of a bump, right?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, cheaper dollars, more speculation. Where is Bitcoin right now? I'm trying to pull it up.
That was live. It's always on the move. Let's see. You're doing that. I'm gonna see if I can. Well, after you're doing that, I have an interesting chart that I think is worth highlighting, talking about how the broader S&P. I know different areas of the market will be affected differently. Small caps, micro caps probably get a bit of a boost. Areas where they're riskier, like Bitcoin, probably get a bit of a boost. But just checking in kind of how the general market moves will be interesting too. So, where's Bitcoin? Find
I
it.
don't know. I'm having a hard time. My
At,
internet's going very slow for
let
me.
let me do a quick Google. Bitcoin price. You're
And I got
saying
to log
99,
back into my brokerage account. I'm
90.
saying
Ooh, too bad.
92. But
92.
it was like 93, 94 in the last 24 hours, or can you tell from the chart or not?
I just closed it. Let me reopen it.
Oh.
But I think last time we checked, which was last week, it was in the 80s, high 80s. But
Yeah. But I
so
think I think in the last 24 hours, and I forgot what news I saw that was a catalyst for it. I don't know that
yeah.
it was more than just the banking stuff, right? Did you see that banks can hold and or lend, I guess, on their balance sheet? Hopefully I'm describing that correctly.
I suppose that's right. I have not been following the crypto story. I've been much less in, so I don't want to state there. Okay, let's see. Yeah, it looks like things really picked up. Yeah, after this morning, right around market open, which is
Yep.
interesting. So I have to change around market. Um. All right. Well, that's good stuff. Let me see if I can throw up this though, real quick. I think it'll be an interesting quick chart. Bang. So I feel like I was just looking at the fear greed index just to get a sense of kind of where people are feeling. It seems like we're still in the fear side of things, but it does seem like people are anticipating rates, to be cut a little bit, at least this go. It's unclear where we go after this, what Powell's going to say at 2:30. Also, what kind of the, Fed chair replacement is looking like and how likely that is to happen. But this is looking at historical data. It's as of September of this year, looking at sort of the post year following cuts when the market is at highs or near highs, which kind of is kind of where we are. And so generally, things tend to trend positively, which is not a super surprise. But I think good to remember because I do think that there is a sentiment or emotional element that I think is affecting how investors are looking at the market right now, of getting a little bit nervous, even though things look from a historical perspective like they can trend up as well. So,
Interesting.
but
Yeah, I'm with you on that chart. So if you believe Kalshi or the betters on Kalshi, we'll get a rate cut. And hopefully we'll see one of those two lines, but in a lot of different areas, right? If you've got a couple of products by chance that operate in areas that are in desperate need for capital, that should be helpful for them. And I pulled up the Bitcoin chart. So around 9:30 in the morning yesterday, Bitcoin was trading around, call it 90,000 a coin. And then from that time until around, call it 12 or 12:30 yesterday, up to 94,671, now has come back down since then. But in seeing that chart, it made me add more to my bet.
oh,
I
okay,
know.
all right, okay, gotta respect it. Yeah, I think. Yeah, okay, fair
So
enough.
let me give you this one. Here's another bet, which is what will Powell say during his December 2025 press conference. And there's a whole bunch of choices. And as an example, let me see.
Is this like,
Show
does he touch
more.
his nose or does he cough more than
No, he's got to say a word. So, for example, the word projection, if you want to say yes, well, that is a 98%, I guess, I don't know, certainty based on Kalshi's and betting. So, most people seem to think that yes, he'll say it. So, if you bet on that, you don't really get much. You got up 2% to work with. So, unless you're betting really big, it won't be a meaningful return on the bet. So, I'm not going to bet anything in the 90s, but in the 90s, projection, expectation, good afternoon, which is what he always starts off with, I believe. Median, balance sheet, balance of risk, restrictive are all in the 90%. But as I look at a few others that are what I'll call 50-50, middle of the road, one's tariff inflation at 53%. One's ADP. I think there's a good chance he says that, and that's at 45%. QT or QE, recession. He's definitely going to say the word, even risks of recession, right?
you'd think?
I'm going to bet. Yeah, I'm going to bet on recession, which is at 30%. I'm going to put in $10. $10 will get me 31, and I'll know here in the next couple of hours.
Okay.
And then I am going to put some money on ADP, which is at 46%. I'll put 10 on that. 10 will get me 20 if I'm right. And then we should do one more. Let me give you a few more words.
You need a fun flyer one flyer one.
I'll give you the ones at the lowest end, which I don't really want to bet on, but you could. At the lowest end, meaning the highest potential return if you're right. And you can vote no, right? So you can take the other side of the bet, which is what's interesting about Kalshi. You don't have to vote just one way or bet just one way. But the lowest odds word or phrase is trade war at 6%.
Okay.
Egg, which is weird, at 6%. Stable coin, Bitcoin at 7%. National debt, 10%. Gold, which I think he might say,
Gold
at 12%. I mean, just talk about how gold has moved and commodities and whatever. Soft landing is at 12%. Anchor is at 12%. Trump is at 13%. He won't mention that name probably at all. He'll just refer to him as the president or something.
Yeah.
Gas, gasoline, and natural gas, 15%. Tax, that seems like an easy one for him to say, 18%. Stagflation, 22%.
Ooh, stagflation. I would say, wouldn't you say, you could say like crude or energy or, I think there are other ways, maybe the gas thing.
Yeah, but if he's going to talk about it, he's probably going to mention one of those three words, and that's only at 15%. You want that one?
Are you taking the lowest odds one?
I'm just naming off some words that are at the lower end range, right? So I want to try to bet a bit contrarian, but I don't want to lose my money. So you got to pick something good.
Okay, so we got stagflation, something related to oil or natural gas, and what was the
tariff inflation? ADP, QT is one, QE is another, or say the words, right? He can. I think I just put some money on ADP, right? Recession, unchanged, consumer confidence, pardon, yield curve, stagflation, tax, gas, gasoline, natural gas, Trump, anchor, soft landing, gold, national debt, stablecoin, Bitcoin, ag, trade war. Any of those things hit you?
I'll say, I don't think he's talked about stagflation.
I don't know that he's got a reason to, right? At this point, he might say risks of recession, right? So then recession would trigger.
Yeah, but I wonder. Let's say gold, because I think it's got to be talking about. Yeah.
Ooh, gold's a good one. 12%.
All right.
So I'm gonna bet $10. If that wins, you get 78.
Oh, what are you going to spend
Bananas.
it on? A boo-boo? Maybe.
Booze and weed.
Honestly, cannabis would not be the worst. Reinvesting in its own way, I think, as well.
There you go. All right, bets are in.
Okay, that's exciting. Yeah. What do you make of all the, I feel like we comment on it a lot, all the, not gambling culture, but I feel like the sports betting, the,
it's like anything that's bad for you, but enjoyable. Mm-hmm. So in moderation, in small amounts, is reasonable. It's a tough one, right? Coming off the heels, and you probably don't follow Barstool or Portnoy that much, and
Oh, I saw that.
up since he left the ETF space. But yeah, he was. I think it was the Raiders game, right, where you get this weird delay of game call, and then with no chance to win because it's literally down to the closing seconds, they kick a field goal that won't do anything for them. There is no chance to get the points you need to even tie. They were 10 points down.
Mhm.
And that field goal would be time running out, and that's all you've got. So the field goal was enough to kill the spread. And so, he seemed to question one, the ref's call, which I'm a little weird on that, but I would certainly more question the coach's call to kick the field goal. Which, keeping in mind, had the ref not made that call, the clock would have ran out and the game would have ended with a 10 point deficit or difference, even with the spread, I think at 8 or 8.5 or something. And, it does look sketchy. And so is that going on? I mean, I guess we certainly know in baseball, right? There weren't some players unfortunately picked up for colluding, affecting the outcome of a game for sports gambling. So it's a tough one. I think it's one of those things where, it's an adult thing and it needs to be left to adults, even though I know, there's quite a culture of gambling, at the high school and college age these days.
Mhm.
And it's pretty sketchy too, the way, especially I had heard of ways that kids were gambling in high school, which is to use these sort of random apps
Mhm.
that people were getting them turned on to. They would get free money to bet, but then eventually it would turn into real money. But you were just getting the app. It wasn't DraftKings or anything else. It was someone's custom made thing. They're kind of feeding them in with some free bets. And from what I understood, if you won money, they'd pay you off. But for them, it was just a seeding thing to find the dumbest kids with some money, and then kind of lock them in sort of a bad way, right? I don't know what would happen to the kid if they, gambled so much they couldn't pay. But I think they try to manage a little bit how much, credit they give to a kid before they'll, break his legs and make him pay up, I guess. But it's pretty scary that environment sort of goes on and kids are, too dumb to not probably make better decisions sometimes.
Most
Um,
are. That's growing up, and I think that's fine. I think, yeah, not
but it gets
letting
sketchy when it gets into
choice
the,
from
yeah, it's not drinking a beer behind the, stands at the football game. This is
yeah.
pretty seemingly organized gambling ring, taking advantage of, young, dumb kids. So stuff like that's scary to hear that goes on, right? And just, I guess, as parents, you just got to talk to your kids and be aware and, be engaged with what's going on with them, right? So I feel good that I was well enough engaged with my own kid to know like what was going on and what was available to them and who was doing what, and, have the opportunity to influence that. But yeah, you just got to leave adult things to adult people. And then even when you do that, right, obviously, drugs, legal drugs and or alcohol and or gambling, even for some adults, is not good for them. They shouldn't do it at all, right? Because they can't do it in small or moderate amounts.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a balance. I do want freedom.
Yep.
But I also wouldn't mind that for all the fees and everything that these companies charge, that there's some mechanism that, if people need help, they can be helped by, some of the profits of what these companies generate.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
I do think it's interesting. I think tech can have these like kind of unintended or kind of difficult to process or digest elements, but I do also look to, and I know I'm so steeped in it just from focusing in on it, but psychedelic medicine for addiction treatments. I know there's a, big focus on alcohol use disorder and trying to help people really break out of those cycles in ways that they couldn't otherwise. So I am
mhm.
curious to see how that sort of the addiction side of things changes. I know there's a lot of focus right now on veterans, a lot of focus on sort of more of the widespread, I would say ultimately, I guess, diseases, major depressive disorder, things like that, trying to get those
Mhm.
addressed first, suicidality, that, the key elements. But I am curious how, as the space kind of matures, if it reaches more and more into also those addictive categories to try to prevent against that in some way too. I don't know. I just
Well,
think
and think about the world of AI, right? And the tricky thing about that is AI is getting embedded into everything, right? So you buy a computer now and it says, you want to turn on the AI thing? Well, we'll do all this cool, we'll read all your stuff, right? And then
yeah,
we'll suggest all these cool things for you. So whether it's your phone or your computer, which, I turn those things off, right? I want to use AI and then I want to not use AI, but I don't want it embedded in all my content. But to the extent that a decent amount of people just hit yes, 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 right in the setup and just turn it all on, or they like the convenience of it,
sure.
you do wonder, I guess a couple of things, right? AI can certainly be used to influence people to do things they maybe shouldn't be doing. I don't know why it would do that, but it could. But certainly, at a minimum, would be aware, hey, this kid's a minor, or this person seemingly does have a problem with gambling because AI is integrated in all the apps and where they're going on the websites. And so at some point, does AI pop up and it's like, holy shit, I saw from your payroll check that came through email, because I'm reading everything that you have, that you make X amount, but I saw you bet this amount. You need some help, buddy. And so would AI just pop that up? Or would AI just serve you up some DraftKings ads and be like, I got one?
I think
So it's scary to think about what it knows, what it can infer from all the different things that you do, your age, how much you make,
yeah.
what you like to do and spend your time, that, scary. And, what are the implications? Who's responsible? Anyone responsible? I don't know.
Who's to say? Well, tying it all back a little bit to inflation and the Fed rate and all of that, in some way, the interesting thing I think has been, I don't know if you've been seeing a ton of the coverage on it, but sort of the dynamic pricing and trying to test that out. And I think we talked about that on the kind of restaurant side of things for a while with actual menu prices changing. But I think now there's a lot of discussion on providers, whether it's like Walmart or Amazon, trying to adjust, or I think it was DoorDash or something, trying to
I
adjust
saw that
pricing
DoorDash.
in terms of
Yeah.
how
Put a
much
little margin on it, right?
yeah. But I mean, that will be an interesting conversation if inflation is not broad in a normal way. It becomes very, I don't know. It's just a new world in terms of how things will change. Curious. We'll see.
But I read that article, and obviously you read it as well. Though, what was the first thing you thought of in terms of, oh, if they're going to do this to me, I'm going to what? Not care or do something else?
I think people will try to not use that, but I wonder if it becomes so pervasive that you can't unplug from it. If it's Amazon, if it's everything else, I think there are some people who can live on a farm in Amishland, Pennsylvania. That is
And they're
true.
door dashing?
No, but I think if it becomes, I think if it's getting tested kind of there,
Right.
like,
Most of the people that are door dashing are living in, reasonable sized suburbs or the big city, right? They can get their ass up out of bed and go to the grocery store. Or what I think, and again, it depends on how the grocery store feels, but you can always go to the grocery store directly, right? Shop and then use whatever delivery mechanism they're using, as opposed to going to DoorDash first, looking at their prices. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me, right? These are businesses and they're going to look for opportunities to take advantage of it. And I don't love layering prices on top of what I'm buying, as much as I wouldn't be offended by a 6 to 8 is the busy time and we charge a premium to deliver to you during that time, right? So then only the people who have really high disposable income will use it during that time and they're willing to pay a higher price. So that makes more sense to me. But to layer on a VIG, it feels like revenue share. Something we're dealing with as of late with all the broker dealer firms. The more successful we are, the more they get paid, and that's not right when you're not part of helping sell the product. But only so much you can do.
it's what it's, but yeah, it's just an interest. It is what it is. It's what it's,
No,
yeah.
it's not, Mackenzie. You can make a
Different. It
difference.
can be different. Yeah, no, it's true. It'll be interesting to see how much people push back. We'll see. I agree that for like
I
premium
think it
elements,
just changed their behaviors, right? I think that's what it'll do. I think, right? I mean, even I feel like, I don't know, sort of post pandemic, right? Stuff like Ubers have gotten expensive. And so, it causes you to change your plans a little bit, right? Now I'll do the math of how many days am I going to be at the parking garage, right? So I know that if it's 3 at DCA, it's $25 a day, $75 is what I'll pay to park. But I know round trip, and then when I add a tip on top of it, at least from, where I would be traveling in and out of Bethesda, it's, I don't know, 65, and that's assuming there's no surge pricing going on in that range. So now, and it used to be 30 or 35 or 40, right? It's really kind of gone up over time. And so, yeah, now I do the math. I'm happily would love to drive myself, right? If parking there was more cost effective. But once they started raising their prices, I would lower my Uber usage
Yeah.
based on what was, at the end of the day, more affordable.
Yeah, that's fair. Doing the basic math. I feel like that's been true for most people forever. But yeah, I think people are making more intentional decisions now with prices being up in different
Right.
areas. So that's true.
Right.
All right, let me see really quickly. Stevie's saying get some puts on my end.
Yes, I'll help you buy some
I
puts.
can figure it
Though
out.
I've been buying some calls lately, if you know what I
Oh,
mean.
okay. Okay. All right. That's exciting. Is it ahead of, can I
That's
ask, next Monday or just generally where we are?
it's ahead of this month, right? So again, just to rehash where I'm at, I believe cannabis reform would happen by this administration, quarters 3, 4, and 5. So roughly the end of March, end of March next year. Um, we're hearing a lot of things about the end of the year and possibly something happening by then to get it on the books and done, and for other reasons.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm feeling optimistic. No other basis, no other facts that I can share, except that I'm hearing feedback from reputable people who are in the middle of the conversations, who do have the conversations. Um, and I do believe they're giving me the very best insight they have. And again, I've seen it online, so it's not like it's some deep dark secret. And we've talked about it. So yeah, I think it's sounding highly likely it could happen by the end of the year. For the love of God, please don't invest or trade off of that comment.
Yep.
But for this guy, I might be loading in some options. And what I'm doing, my strategy is to get a further out expiration date with the idea that if we get to the end of the year, part of me thinks, oh, it's almost like the election and Florida not passing, right? There'll be this the kind of let down, right, of prices. But
Mhm.
honestly, it feels like prices, kind of moved up and then moved down and then moved up and then moved down a little bit more. So I'm not sure that there's that many people that would sell because nothing happens by the end of the year. Because I
Mhm.
don't know that the space has gotten that big since when these have started to come up, that this could be the time frame. And it doesn't feel like there's much of a benefit from a tax loss perspective, right? The market's up 16. So unless you've sold that gain, maybe you can draw, depending on what cannabis portfolio you're in, right? If you're in global, you're locking into a gain, which you may not want to do. If you're in US, well, you're probably down a little bit, depending on how you've dollar cost average throughout the year, assuming you've done that. So I'm not even sure there's a big sort of tax loss harvesting opportunity. I do think if nothing happens by the end of the year, negative pressure, but not what we saw in November when Florida didn't pass.
Yeah.
With that being said, even though I am in the end of first quarter, by the end of first quarter camp, I'm starting to feel like if it doesn't happen by the end of this year, I don't know that there's another meaningful catalyst for the administration to get it done until we get closer to the midterm. So that would suck, and I'd be frustrated by that. But that's my concern now is, the end of the year we know is a meaningful milestone for both the industry and an administration that operates based on a little bit of this.
I think that's a lot on that. Yeah, no, that's true. I do think it'll be interesting to kind of reevaluate on the other side of next week once we kind of see what's going on the judicial side. I think that would be potentially another thing that would be hanging out there. Again, don't want to be just looking at what is possible and what's available, but I know that's another kind of avenue to pursue. So I think it'll be interesting to see once we have better insight on that on Monday, where we are, if that's an option, all of that. But yeah, I think a lot of people viewing it kind of as an option on some change. I do think you mentioned on the global side of things, you probably don't have some losses to deal with, which is good, depending on, again, when you were in. But that's one that I'm constantly surprised that people paying more attention to. I think it has the optionality of the US, which is great. Yeah, one to focus on. I think it's a global trend, but obviously a lot of growth in the US. So interesting stuff. Oh, good question from Stevie. Would you share your strike price?
Sure. I have a $5 strike price.
Okay, fair enough. Good stuff. All right, we'll see.
And so I'm doing options the same way I would do, either the stocks or the ETF, which is I've bought into that contract now a couple of times, right, at different prices. So it's a little bit further out in the expiration. And so I forgot to make the point, right, which buys me some time that if there is a let off at the end of the year, the space is so headline driven, right? If there's another cannabinoid video posted or maybe a newsletter writer that has a bunch of followers, writes something. I know that it's so headline driven that I can maybe get a bounce back and look to get out of them. But yeah, I'm doing longer expiration still with the goal of, trying to get out of them by the end of the year, hoping that we get the news by the end of the year. I guess from there I'll figure out how long to hold them because I've got a longer time frame from there. But yeah, it's maybe for me another form of degenerate gambling. Sorry, everybody.
I think you can have the overall investment long-term view, but also you could say, hey, I do a little something around the timing. I think that's totally fair. Yeah, I could look at my allocation currently because I think I'd legged in a little bit, mid-year, pre sort of some of the run up, but
yeah, that's my challenge too, right? It's funny with something like, what I'll call gambling, like DraftKings or Kalshi. I usually have the discipline to do small amounts and we'll sometimes do it and sometimes not. It's sort of a sometimes boredom focused thing, right? I'm not like constantly pulling it up and seeing what I can get some action on. But on the investing side, right, I definitely have a tendency to be more aggressive from a allocation, from all of that perspective. So in some ways, I would argue that's a bit tougher in that I risk a lot more.
A lot more potentially, or
yeah, but from every aspect, if it's, let's say it's not cannabis, I believe stocks will go up over time, or certainly a basket of good companies will go up over time. Will it go up more than the S&P? I don't know. It might be less, but it'll go up for the most part, depending on timing and bear markets and stuff like that. Long enough horizon, I'll be good. But the cannabis stuff, right? That's always been challenging because I'm buying based on a thesis, right? Legalization of some form or another. And as everyone knows, like, holy shit, that's been such a painful, I read all the Mark Yusko posts, sort of suffering in an investment and how those create the best opportunities for you.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm suffering, but
no, I think it was saying basically when you feel uncomfortable, when you feel like you're, not super complacent and not like, oh yeah, I'll pile into what everyone else is piling into. It'll probably be fine. Yeah, I think
and he has that famous quote of, when the facts change, I'll change my mind, right? And for me, the facts haven't changed. The timing has been challenging, but what I see coming and all the incremental positive things that do happen, not counting the setbacks of Florida not getting done, but seeing all these sort of incremental positive steps. Virginia's up next, hopefully Pennsylvania soon. I would have thought that would have been a little bit sooner as well. So the only thing I'm getting wrong is timing. And for me, and we've talked about this a lot, dollar cost averaging helps solve that problem. But in the whole scheme of things, from my perspective, relative to Kalshi, there's a much bigger bet on the line.
Fair enough. I know everyone's focused on the federal side. I will say, while Pennsylvania has definitely been a little bit of a delay, I think we have seen other states come online. Other states find better ways of operating. Virginia, of course. So I think there has been progress being made. Of course, everyone wants, I think, the big thing at the end, but real meaningful change. But I think even though it's taken a while, I think in that time, there have been positive steps that are worth paying attention to. That's my only thought.
We're going to have to edit that out on the YouTube
video. What did I just say?
I don't know.
Nothing. Okay. Nothing. All right. I'll check okay. 12:35. That sounds good. All right. Dang. I don't know what I said. All right. Final thing, I guess. Well, unless you have any final thoughts, I was going to pull up an interesting chart that will tease for the Friday conversation. An interesting mover down.
What's the Friday conversation? Oh, I know.
Is Brad Lemonsdorf is going to be on.
Yay.
So, which again, we'll have a very interesting second half of the week. So I think that'll be great. But
pull it up.
Chart.
Pull it up.
So the question is, what happened. This is very short term. This is just looking at the 5 days, but you can obviously see pretty substantial drop.
Yep. Something crapped the bed, it looks like.
Yes. So Frisia will, I'm not like super hyper intimate with them, but Brad will be able to give us some great insight into how somewhere ahead of here, where am I? Ahead of here, he was able to say,
Can't see your cursor.
oh, dang. Okay. Sometime
somewhere
ahead of that giant
it
vertical drop.
dropped. Yeah, he shorted it.
Yes.
And then sometimes after that drop, he decided to cover it, I believe.
Yes. So it'll be interesting story. I think with him, it's great to get his perspective just because I think he's able to really break down the numbers, the balance sheets.
I mean, market's up what? Double digits, 16 and change, and they're still eking out. It's small, but they're still eking out a positive return this year. That's a huge accomplishment for an all short fund, right? To beat the S&P 500 when you got to invest in the S&P 500 stocks. We know unbelievably hard to do, certainly unbelievably hard to do consistently over time. As a short seller, it's super hard to short. The costs are enormous, right? Short interest, all of that, borrow costs, things like that. So you have all that weighing down against you. And if you're just, as good or as bad as the S&P 500, he would be negative 16%, right? So anything that's better than that, meaning not as negative, so down 14, down 10, down 5 would be amazing, right? Down 5 would be a 10% or 1,000 basis point sort of alpha he's adding over that inverse. And he's even better than that. He's slightly positive. So, if you're using tools like that, we definitely encourage. And again, it's different, when you're looking at something like just the single beta inverse designed for traders, because the index-based one, right? And so designed for traders, single day investment objective, but really for the most part, unless you're genuinely day trading, which is really what you should probably be doing with that product, quite frankly, because it's single beta inverse, I do believe people will hold that longer over time and try to find during bear markets. But all it's still going to deliver to you over that time is the inverse of the market. Take a look at the chart that McKinsey and others work so hard for. You'll see how awesome it does in those bear markets.
It is key. Here's what I got to employ next time. Can you hear this? Did that come through at all?
Do it again. I thought I heard something. It's like a squeeze. It's a squeezing noise.
It should be a record scratch sound.
Oh, it's very light though. Can you turn it up?
I can turn it up.
And it's very short.
It is short.
You should just hold on, like pretend like you're saying something out loud.
Right.
So suck.
I'm gonna say. So fair enough.
Oh, and I heard the record scratch at the end too.
That was it. Okay.
That's awesome.
That's what I got to start employing. I got to be ready on it. But check it out. Very interesting. I do think, especially with there's some very positive historical data following cuts, very historical data in terms of how the market moves over time. But I do think
And listen, the tricky part is market up 16. No one wants to talk, inverse funds. I want to talk holiday parties because their portfolio is up so nicely. So
that's true. But that's the same thing that Yusko was talking about with really trying to say when you're feeling comfortable, it's all fine, it's all good. I think that's a time to at least understand and familiarize yourself with the products and tools that can help you. That's all.
But I would still say the same thing there, right? Know why you want to short, right? I know why I want to be long the cannabis space. Know why you want to short, and then know what it looks like when the reason why you want to short has arrived, or if it's not going to arrive, and then you make that buy, sell decision then, right? And that's the thing. It is super hard to time bear markets. It's not quite as hard to start to notice when you're getting into a bear market and then make that decision and then say, all right, at these levels, things get worse or things get better, and then be disciplined about your process if you want to go through that work and the effort of actively managed. If not, one, don't worry about it. Just dollar cost average and enjoy your life. Or two, find a financial advisor who can help you.
Well said. All right. Fantastic. I think that's solid. Covered it all. Final bets, we'll have to wait and see when they come through, but hopefully, are you gonna be posting on X when your bets hit?
Yeah, I'll do it.
All right, exciting.
I'll do it, and we'll know when. 2 Eastern?
2:30 is when Powell's talking. 2 is when the announcement is.
When they'll release it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll know my rates bet
in in about an hour.
by 2. Yeah. That one, let me see what my monster payout is. $24 if I win that.
Cash money. That sounds good. All right. Well, stay tuned. Enjoy. Happy Fed Day for everyone. And again, tune in tomorrow. Eddie Elfenbein should be a great conversation. And then on Friday, Brad Lamensdorf should be a fantastic conversation as well. Hope to see you there. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.
Before investing, carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses found in the prospectus, available at AdvisorShares.com.